When children mysteriously start disappearing in a sleepy rural town, Detective Craig Allen is hired to investigate. His methods are unorthodox, his fee more costly than his clients realize. However, waiting deep within the dark forest that surrounds the town is something so evil that it will take all of Craig's skills to survive it. Something the locals call the Candy Witch.
It's time for the Post-Mortem Report with your hosts Ronald McGilray and Michael Schotter. Each month, these sultans of speculative fiction take a break from bending reality to ask one burning question. What cool stuff got buried in the social media graveyard while people were busy yelling at each other? Well, there's only one way to find out, so let's dig into it. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Post-Mortem Report. I'm your co-host, Michael Schotter.
And I'm Ronald McGilray. Welcome to episode 26.
It's a very, very, very good time. I assure you.
I had to think about it for a second there. I was like, I hope it's 26.
That's the danger with the numbers, right? You got to make sure you get the number correct, or else it's just a total fiasco. But we're professionals, and I had no doubt that you were going to get the right number.
There you go.
So, speaking of professionalism, let's stick to our guns and give the people what they want. You can let them know what's been going on in your neck of the woods lately.
Well, actually, a couple big things. When this episode comes out, there's a very good chance that my new book, Candy Witch, will be out.
Yes, very nice.
And when we're recording this, other than Michael, nobody actually knows what the title of my book is, because I haven't posted anything, because I've been trying to push through the final edits. It's like the fourth round or something, and it's in that tedious grind part. And I could probably say something, but I just decided until I get it kind of all wrapped up, I'm not saying anything. Very particular about how I do things. So, but now it's pushing in towards the end of July. I haven't said a word about the new book yet, so I'm gonna have to step on it soon. So that'll be pretty exciting. It's, as usual, it's kind of a mesh of genres between sort of horror, sort of detective mystery, I guess fantasy as well. So we'll see what people think. It'll be interesting. I thought the cover looked cool.
Yeah, it definitely turned out well. It was cool too, getting to see sort of behind the scenes, the evolution of that cover design, because I know you shared with me one of the previous designs.
Yeah.
Getting to see where that was and then where you ended up. It was kind of neat.
Yeah. So I don't know. Can't wait to show it. So, but I'll build up to it. I don't know if it'll be out when this comes out, because our episodes come out early in the month, but it should be out in September. Just not sure when.
Yeah. If we can nail that release date down by the time I finish editing this episode, I'll be sure to throw it on the screen for everyone. But I would imagine if it's not out, we'll know for sure in next episode, and we can give it the full disclosure at that point.
Something to look forward to in the next episode even. But keep your eyes open. Candy Witch is coming. It's gonna get you.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, I try.
What else? Oh, another big thing. I've lost 10 pounds, actually more than 10 pounds now in my
Oh,
new
wow.
diet workout thing. So I've been pushing hard, trying to do it. And this time I've been really sticking with a set plan, and I've
Hmm.
been keeping to it, and finally broke 10 pounds. So I was quite happy with that, because when you're doing all this workout and giving up popcorn like every night while you're watching movies and stuff, I was like, nothing's happening. And it
Hmm.
was kind of depressing. But then
Hmm.
I started look kind of I started a little bit at a time, started going, then it would stop. And then all of a sudden it was just boom, boom, and then all of a sudden, oh, more than 10. So then you kind of it motivates you.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I now that I seen I've got 10 off, keep on going, see if I get another 10. But I've read
Hmm.
all this stuff where sometimes it slows down, you got to be patient, but
Yeah.
we'll see.
I mean, the other thing too is when you're working out, you're building muscle mass, and
Yeah,
muscle weighs a lot. So that's
yeah,
going to affect your weight, right?
yeah,
But it's not just about weight, it's about how do you feel? What are you
exactly.
capable of physically? How do you look?
Yeah,
All that sort of thing. So
yeah,
a lot of factors to that for sure.
yeah. Well, I see it now, like in my pants and stuff. So
Hmm.
I know something's happening.
Yes.
Something's happening.
Nice.
But yeah, but yeah, I'm
Excellent.
trying to keep one of the hard things, I'm trying to do a minimum of 10,000 steps a day.
Uh-huh.
And that's hard with all the different things between like having a work, doing social media, working
Hmm.
on my book.
Hmm.
It's but I've got it down. So I have like three different parts to it, but I seem to have that thing down. I think that was the key, was having a plan that kind of works.
Hmm.
So now I do. So we'll we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
But what really motivated me to do it, the only last two things I was going to say is I've kind of been on these whirlwind trips lately. Well, not whirlwind, more like Quebec centric
Yeah. Yeah.
trips. I went to Montreal as well as Quebec City. And as I'm sure you can imagine, when you go to Montreal and Quebec City, one of the best things to do there is eat.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
eat I did. And some of the stuff you're eating, like poutine, smoked meat, bagels, it's I think that sort of packed on some pounds. So when I came back, that motivated me to push even further to do
Hmm.
some stuff. So yeah, when you go, especially back to back, it was so close. The
Hmm.
times that I went, that it it was a lot of eating. But I'll tell you though, Montreal and Quebec City, both gorgeous cities.
Hmm.
Yeah. Thing with Quebec City, it's really gorgeous. I mean, the old city, it's all walled with the sort of the fortifications and everything looks like it did way back in like the 1600s or whatever. But
Hmm.
it's like almost 5 hours, so it's a bit long. Where Montreal, it has the old port and old Montreal, and it's only 2 hours. So, and they've got cool festivals like the Jazz Festival, which was the reason we went to Montreal.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't think you've mentioned on the show why you went to Montreal, so that's kind
Yeah,
of cool, right? Yeah.
went to see the Jazz Festival. I'm a jazz fan.
Hmm.
A lot of people probably didn't know that, but yeah,
Well, if you'd watched our Guilty Pleasures episode, you would know that.
I
But
guess yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So, so yeah, I mean they were good, nice getaways, beautiful cities, a lot of food, and now I'm back to my workouts. Coming right around to the beginning, I will reiterate again, I've lost over 10 pounds.
Yes, yes. Congrats
And
on your
hopefully,
progress thus far.
thanks. Hopefully next episode, I won't go be crying saying, I've gained it all back. So
I
we'll
believe in you.
see.
You got this.
Yeah.
It's all
So
good.
So stay tuned.
Insert
See if my
random
willpower.
motivational phrase here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So yeah, keep my eye on that Fitbit. Keep on going. So
Hmm.
anything new or exciting with you?
Just busy, 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 work, 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 time to make the donuts and such. I The main thing this month is actually one I'm pretty excited about, which is the third story single for eight is coming out, which is called Hostile Takeover. And the main reason why I'm super excited about this story is it's actually one of the oldest things that I've conceived of that I've actually written and published. So this story goes way back to the origins of the whole big men concept, from even way before I wrote the big men and got the whole Nodwell's timelines thing off and running with that book. This was sort of one of the ideas. It was like the germ or the genesis of that whole thing is sort of encapsulated in this story. So I'm definitely very excited and eager for people to check that one in particular out. So hopefully people will dig it and find it interesting and compelling. I think especially people who are already fans of and invested in my sort of literary universe will be particularly interested in this one, just because of how it is sort of foundational to a lot of the stuff that came after it, despite only being written and published now after all these years. It's one of those ideas that was sitting in my brain for a really long time before I actually finally wrote it last year.
Yeah. See, I was thinking almost the opposite. I was thinking for people who actually had never read any of your books, that this would be a great place to jump in since this is the whole germ of the idea. So it's like,
Yeah, yeah.
read the story. And if you, like you said, if you dig it, move right into the series.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I definitely had that idea with a lot of the stories from eight, the upcoming book, that I really wanted to make them potentially equally appealing to fans and people who are already invested in the stuff and new readers as well. And I think this story in particular is very emblematic of that. So, like I say, super, super excited about it. Hopefully, people will be into it. And yeah, onwards.
You know, it would be cool if you
Hmm.
wrote like a forward explaining the whole genesis of the story and
Well,
added it.
actually, after this new novel that I'm gonna be, well, actually, by the time this episode comes out, I will have
Uh-huh.
already started working on the new novel, which is actually going to be my ninth book. But after that project is done, which will probably be sometime before the end of this year, the next big thing that I'm going to be working on is basically a compendium for my universe, a book that explains all the ins and outs and how everything ties in together and that sort of thing. That's actually going to be my 10th book.
Well,
And so I've already kind of started piecing that together and putting the groundwork in place to be able to write that and do some cool things with that concept. But yeah, that's a lot of that text I've already started writing, but writing it in the context of knowing that it's eventually going to go into this compendium volume at some point. I kind of can't go too deep down that rabbit hole until the ninth book is done because the ninth book will influence that, I'm sure. But yeah, that's kind of the roadmap for me over the next couple of years is getting that last novel done and then getting the compendium done and kind of fully articulating all the little details of how all that stuff came to be and how it all interconnects and that sort of thing. So, spoilers, that's what I'm going to be doing for the next couple of years.
there you go. That's cool.
Well,
Moving on from our personal slash writing updates, let's get into this month's featured post. So it's my turn to pick one this time, and I think I got a pretty good one for you all. You may recall on a previous episode, I talked about the self-published science fiction competition, or the SPSFC, as it is so succinctly referred to. And they actually just recently posted the winner and the finalists for that competition, which is in its third year now. So I wanted to at least briefly mention that the actual winner of the SPSFC 3, as it's called, is a book called Kenai, Kenai, by Dave Dobson. This is actually an author who I was previously not familiar with, and a book that I was previously not familiar with, but obviously with it having won the competition, it's definitely put it on my radar. So I am interested to perhaps check that out at some point. I also did want to give a little shout out to a book and an author that I am familiar with, which is Dark Theory by Wick Welker, which was number 6. So one of the finalists in this year's competition. So shout out to Wick and his book. Interestingly, that book actually was in the competition last year as well, but didn't make it quite as far. And I think that's one of the interesting things about the SPSFC and how it's structured and how it works is that A, authors are able to resubmit books through multiple years. So in Wick's case, that book, I think, might have made it into the quarterfinals last year and then got knocked out, but this time it made it all the way to the finals. And of course, obviously it's the same book, right? It didn't just spontaneously magically get better, right? It's just that with this particular pool of judges, and their tastes and preferences and inclinations, it just managed to go a bit further this time than it did the previous time. And I think that's kind of an important thing to think about or keep in mind when it comes to things like this is that a lot of these books are really cool, really great, really noteworthy books. And it just is a question of what did the judging pool that got assigned the books think of them in that moment? Or did that book resonate with that particular group of judges to be able to move on to the next round of the competition and get read by more people and that sort of thing? And I think the overall big takeaway that I always want to encourage people to have with things like the SPSFC is a lot of these books are definitely worth your time and attention, right? Regardless of how far they make it into the competition, there's a lot of stuff out there that's worth checking out if you're at all interested in science fiction. So definitely wanted to shout it out. Definitely wanted to call some attention to it and just give some kudos and praise to everyone involved in the process. The judges, the organizers, all those people put a ton of work every year into making that event happen. And it's a really good, positive thing for the indie science fiction community. So check it out.
There you go.
So speaking of science fiction, I actually wanted to give a little update for my reading this month about my adventures with Murderbot and Martha Wells' infamous saga of science fiction books, because the last time I talked about the Murderbot Diaries series on the show, I had only read through the second book, so All Systems Red and Artificial Condition. Since then, I've actually read 3 more of the books in that series: Rogue Protocol, Exit Strategy, and Network Effect. So a couple things I wanted to mention about this. The first 4 books in the series, I would say, basically follow a bit of a formula or a bit of a structure in that they're all pretty much
long novella, short novel length, and kind of have what I would say is a bit of a method to their madness that becomes a little bit of a thing that you can sort of count on as you're reading through them. And one of the reasons I really wanted to get to the fifth book in the series, Network Effect, is that it takes that formula and sort of changes it up and mixes it up a bit. So the fifth book is novel length. It's a much longer book with a lot more detail, a lot more sophistication to it, and also kind of changes up the pattern of how the story plays out and the things that end up happening in it in a way that I thought was really cool and refreshing and welcome, having read four books that were kind of done in the same style and kind of had a lot of the same beats and mechanisms to them. It was really cool getting to this point in the series and getting to experience that change up. So it's something I kind of wanted to recommend on two fronts, that if you had been reading the first few books in the series and were beginning to think, oh, these are starting to maybe feel a little bit samey, definitely get through that fourth book and get the bit of closure that comes to a lot of the story arcs from that fourth book. And then absolutely check out the fifth book, because that change up that occurs is really cool and really satisfying and fulfilling. Like if you're at all invested in the characters and the story and what's been going on throughout that series, that fifth book is a nice little treat. And the interesting thing about it is it's sort of packaged and presented as being a standalone experience. And I do feel like you could read Network Effect as its own sort of standalone book, because it does give you enough context for what's going on that it does function in isolation. But my personal take and opinion on it is you really should read the first four books first, because there's enough callbacks and references to the things that happened in those first four books that will hit for you better and will give you more of an impact and resonate more if you are already familiar with them. So while I would not disagree with the sort of marketing pitch for Network Effect that it is a standalone, having read all five, I would say you definitely should read them in order if you are going to go down that path. But having done all that now, I'm real curious to read the last two of the currently published books. And I'm also encouraged to know that apparently there's going to be at least two more of them coming out here in the not too distant future. So I'll be curious to see what she ends up doing with the rest of this series that's being put out kind of as we speak. It's also kind of noteworthy, and this actually didn't really have anything to do with my interest in this series, because I had already kind of committed to reading the books before I heard about this. But apparently, there's actually going to be I believe it's an Apple TV series based on these books that's already in production and going to be coming out soon. So that's kind of cool as well.
Niffy.
Yeah. Are you still on the hunt for All Systems Red? Have you still been checking out your library service? I know you were scoping it out at one point trying to find that.
No, I gave up.
You gave up.
There was like about four or five people ahead of me, and I've moved on to other things at the moment, so
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
come back to it
Nice. Nice.
or just break down and buy it.
Yeah. It's definitely worth a buy. That's a book that I do not regret buying at all. Like I think that's a really solid, safe bet. Like if you're at all interested in science fiction, at the very least, that first book in the series is worth owning in some fashion, I think.
Hmm.
But speaking of things that Ron is on the hunt for, it's time for Ron's book hunt. Yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. We have a new little sub segment here where Ron is going to tell you all about his latest book find.
Yeah. I've been sort of going through, well, it started with moving my books around, which I tend to do. It's an odd thing of mine. It's almost like seasonal. It's like, well, these books got to go up here. These ones are going to go down here. And I was looking at some of the new books I have, some of my older books, and it just got me thinking about all the books out there. And, I thought I would just start hunting through things and see what catches my eye and something that's sort of talk worthy. So this episode, I decided to pick a book by Ronald Kelly, an oldie buddy goodie, and its title is Fear, which I'm sure lots of people have heard about. It's probably his most famous book that he has. So I'll read a blurb just in case you're not aware of Fear. It was a legend in Fear County, a hideous creature, part snake, part earthbound demon, that feasted on the blood of innocent children in the cold black heart of the Tennessee backwoods. But 10-year-old Jeb Sweeney knows the horrible stories are not simply tall tales, but true. Several children in the town of Pikesville, as well as his girlfriend Mandy, have been abducted in the dead of night and taken to the snake critter's lair. Jeb knows that no one has ever had the courage to go after the monster and put an end to its raging bestial hunger. That is, until now. But evil is well guarded, and for young Jeb, who is about to cross over into the forbidden land of Fear County and unknown territory, passage through the gates of hell comes with a terrible price. Unbearable and everlasting fear. And I think the thing that caught my eye with this one too, because I was aware of it, is that there's a special author's preferred edition.
Mm-hmm.
It contains the original novel and introduction by author Brian Keene, fear testimonial section, and 2 bonus novellas, as well as an afterword by Ronald Kelly himself. So it'd be, if you already have Fear and you enjoyed it, this would be a cool thing to add to the collection.
Yes, I was going to say it seems very collectible for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. And it's, I mean, it's been talked about for forever.
Mm-hmm.
So I just thought I would bring it back to life. So when I was looking into it and stuff, I was reading, it's like Ronald's been writing for over 36 years.
Mm-hmm.
I know he took a break at some point, but
Mm-hmm.
36 years, it's a lot of mileage.
Yep. Making it happen for sure.
Yeah, yeah. As I was looking here, which I didn't know, that his audio collection of Southern Fried short stories, Dark Dixie, Tales of Southern Horror, was included on the nominating ballot of the 1992 Grammy Awards for Best Non-Musical or Spoken Album.
Hmm.
I did not know that.
The more you know.
There you go. So if you've never actually read Ronald Kelly stuff, this would be probably a good place to start.
Yeah. I always think it's super interesting to see that moment that occurs with a lot of books where you have the original version of the book that might have been popular even in its day, but then you
Yeah,
get to these special editions or these re-releases or these ultimate editions of things that really kind of solidifies their place in the sort of pantheon of a given genre. And I think this is a good example of a book like that, where this is very clearly a book that's been read and talked about and has a lot of like street cred to it.
yeah,
Getting to see it get a cool, snazzy edition like that is super cool.
yeah. It's I don't know because he wasn't at StokerCon when we were there, was he?
No, I don't believe so.
Yeah, because I'm sure I would have noticed that because he would have been interesting to talk to.
I definitely would have made him draw us a picture for sure.
Yeah, yeah. It's he I well because he's from Tennessee and I'm not actually all that familiar with Tennessee. And as a Canadian, you're kind of things like that are sort of mystical. It's kind of like, yeah, you heard about them, but they're so different than, you know, anything that we have here. So when you hear of something like, it's Tennessee, and you're like, wow, wonder what that's like.
Yeah.
So
Well, I see, I'm a Tennessee expert now because I've been to Nashville and Memphis for
there
like
you
a whole
go.
day. So I can
There
tell
you
you
go.
everything there is to know
Uh,
about Tennessee. I'm
Yeah,
kidding.
yeah, yeah. You didn't see Ronald Kelly walking down the streets?
No,
Ah,
I wasn't in I wasn't in hunting mode, so I didn't like notice everybody that I
ah,
passed. But
I guess.
for all I know, we may have been on
Past
opposite
each
sides of
other.
the street and not even
Yeah,
known it.
yeah. There you go. Well, I just thought that I would start bringing some, attention and new eyes on different authors
Yep.
instead of doing my usual review.
Hmm. Good times.
There you go. Ronald Kelly's Fear, plus a plethora of books.
Hmm. All righty. Well, this time I'm going to blow everybody's mind because I actually have a movie to talk about.
Oh no,
Yeah, it's stealing your bit.
I was gonna say.
So I thought this would be a fun one to talk about on the show because it is writing related. And so if you're not already aware of this film, one that was making the rounds pretty heavily last year and actually got a lot of Oscar buzz was a film called American Fiction. And one of the things that immediately attracted me to this movie, other than the basic premise, which is about an author who's kind of struggling to get their work recognized and acknowledged in a sea of sort of populist dreck and drivel, is the fact that the star of the film is actually an actor who's pretty familiar to me, which is Jeffrey Wright, who fans of HBO's Westworld series will recognize as the Bernard Lowe character from that show. I always find his voice very soothing and interesting, and I think he's a really cool quality, top-notch actor. So as soon as I saw that he was involved in it, that kind of put this movie on my radar. But having checked it out, I really do like what they did with the premise. It's a very cool idea, and the way it's implemented is very cool. And there's some very clever scenes throughout the movie that I think approach the whole craft of writing and the whole business of writing and publishing in some very interesting, insightful, and compelling ways. There's one scene in particular where they sort of visualize his process of writing a scene in the book that he's trying to write. Because basically, at a certain point in the early stages of the film, he decides, okay, if they want, this dreck, this dribble, that's what I'm going to do, right? I'm going to give them this trashy novel that they apparently want to publish. And so he decides to do that, but then he quickly realizes he doesn't actually know how to write that sort of thing because he's been writing literature all his life. So there's this really cool, kind of funny scene where he's trying to figure out how to actually create that.
And I won't go into the details of it because it sort of would spoil it, but that scene, there's some other sort of cool scenes that along those lines that sort of pull the curtain back from the writing and the publishing world in some cool and fun and interesting ways. And then on top of that, the movie also has some cool slice of life family drama stuff layered on top of that, which kind of gives it a little more of a grounding and relatability. So like even if you're not an author or somebody who works in the publishing industry, you'll be able to relate to it in a way that I think is more ubiquitous. So all things considered, really enjoyed the film. Would definitely recommend people check it out if you haven't already. And I think it's one that, despite its popularity, might have flown a little bit under the radar for certain people who may have dismissed it as Oscar bait or something like that. I actually think it's quite good and worth a watch. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to talk about it here.
Well, I liked him in Westworld.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little aside, right? Like Bernard's
Yeah,
like definitely one of the cooler characters in Westworld for sure, I
yeah,
think.
yeah. His story arc was kind of cool too.
Yeah. I actually have yet to see the fourth season of Westworld, so I can't really talk about the series as a whole, but I know like up to the point where I did watch it, he was definitely one of my favorite characters.
Yeah. Now, so is it is it like a drama or is it a
In the
comedy?
trailers and such, they sort of pitch it as a comedy
Yeah.
drama, but I think it's actually more drama than comedy. Because there's definitely comedic elements to it, and there's some actually really funny scenes and moments in the movie.
Uh,
But I think at the end of the day, it's more of a serious film. It's more of a like look at writing and publishing through the lens of race, because obviously him being a black author factors heavily into the whole proceedings and
okay.
the way the publishing industry approaches publishing the works of people of color factors very heavily into the story. And so that's a big part of it. And something that I think ultimately is the big push or the big takeaway of the film is that it is like a more serious, like dramatic piece. But like I said, there's some really funny stuff in that movie too that should not be, dismissed or ignored.
Right. It was a dramedy.
Yeah, little bit of a dramedy, yes.
Yeah. It was based on a book, I think.
I would not be able to tell you that. Yeah,
Thought
not
I thought I read that.
yeah.
But don't quote me.
Entirely possible. Would not be surprised if that's the case, but I'm only familiar with the film.
Sounds cool. Where was it airing on or
I actually
streaming?
ended up watching it on Prime Video,
Okay.
um, which was cool because I had seen it pop up on there briefly right before all the Oscar buzz started, and then it got pulled from the free movies, and they started charging for it. But
Okay.
I just never got around to watching it, and then it popped up on the free movies on Prime again, and I was like, ah, see, I waited long enough, and now it's back.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a
So
strange
that
thing
was,
about Amazon Prime. It's like because I'll put things on my watch list and then I'll be cruising through my watch list to pick something and I'll go when I see the check mark, but it's like gone,
yeah.
even though it's still there in my watch list, but it's not available. And then
Yeah, that's
it
definitely
pops
a
back.
Prime Video thing I've noticed,
Yeah.
especially in the past year or so, is like a movie when it first shows up on there, it'll be like free for a week, and then it'll go to premium for a while, and then sometimes if you're lucky, it'll be free again. I think that's like
Yeah.
a thing that they do on purpose to try to build like buzz and hype for new releases. Is sometimes they'll give you that like real tiny window of opportunity to watch it free and then
if you're not quick on the draw, you got to wait or break
Mm.
out the wallet.
Yeah. I'll have to check. I'll see if we get it up here.
Yeah. Well, like I said, it had been premium video for a while. So
Yeah.
hopefully, if you guys have it now on the free list, it'll be there for a little while. I would not hesitate to at least rent it, even just to watch it as a rental. I think would be worth it. It's a very good, well done movie. It's definitely worth a rental at least.
Mm.
So you've been watching something yourself lately that you wanted to talk about. What is
Yep.
that, good sir?
Well, I've been watching Mayan MC.
Mm.
Sort of completely different. Well, I was a fan of Sons of Anarchy, and this is a spin-off of that.
Hmm.
And I was just in the mood for some kind of like gang activity. And
Some
I was looking through
shenanigans.
stuff. Yeah, yeah. And I was cruising through things. I was like, well, maybe I'll watch because it's like it usually is with me. I was like, well, maybe I'll watch something. And it was kind of time limited because at first I thought I what it started with I wanted to watch The Godfather again. And I was just in that mood for that. And I looked at how long it was compared to how much time I had before I went to bed because I had done some other stuff that night, and I was like, I don't have time for that. And then I thought, well, maybe I'll just watch like a show. So I was thinking, Sons of Anarchy or Breaking Bad or just something like that. And then I saw the Mayan MC, and I thought, actually, I've never watched that. It's been on my watch list for a while. So I started watching it. And as things tend to happen, I got hooked. But I've always been a big fan of the whole sort of gang underworld kind of
Yeah, it's
thing.
kind of your jam, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's always kind of fascinated me. And it's this one is very similar to Sons of Anarchy, but although Sons of Anarchy, I mean, there was plenty of violence and stuff. And to be fair, it's been a long time since I watched Sons of Anarchy, but Mind MC just seems to me to be a bit darker than I
Hmm.
remember Sons of Anarchy being. Now, of course, that does happen when there's distance of time, you
Hmm.
know, between it, but this one has a lot. They play the Mayans are sort of Mexican based gang. They're right on the border, so they're dealing with all the border issues, and a lot of
Hmm.
stuff takes place in Mexico. And it's certainly not a tourism friendly show for
Yeah.
Mexico tourism because it's the violence that it portrays that goes on there is quite something. But but on both sides of the thing, and they deal a lot with um, sort of the whole government upheaval under Trump and how there doesn't seem to be any real safeguards. There's so many layers to this thing. You used to see how this one government, he's an attorney, well, like a district attorney for the government at a federal level. Uh, doesn't seem to have any, there's no guard posts or anything monitoring what he's doing. So the stuff he's doing is a criminal in itself. And then you got the Mayans, of course, doing their criminal activities. And then you
Hmm.
have the cartel
Doing its criminal
doing their
activities.
criminal activity. And they're
Yeah.
all intertwined doing just bad things. Everyone's doing bad things. But there's all subplots too. There's two main characters, Ezekiel and Angel, Ezekiel, they call him Easy, um, and their father, um, and their father has sort of a hidden past, and their mother unfortunately was murdered, and the Ezekiel tried to capture the person who killed their mother and ended up going to jail for it. And then when he came out, he uh, decided to join in with his brother, who was part of Mayans M.C. So there's all that subplot of trying to find out who murdered their mother,
Mm-hmm.
the subplot of the father's hidden past, um, uh, the stuff that's going on with the cartels, because the leader of the cartel was built by his father, and now this guy is trying to keep it but legitimize it, kind of like Michael and I guess The Godfather.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got sort of, I wouldn't say a trophy wife, but for lack of a better term, he has his trophy wife, and she's been drawn into this due to a kidnapping. But anyways, multi layers, multi textual. It got me all wrapped up, and now I'm already into season 2, and this is just what I needed. Another multi-year
Yeah,
series.
multi-season investment. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's good. I enjoy it. It's definitely if you like that kind of genre. But the
Right. Yeah, that's the critical thing, right? Like,
yeah,
is this your sort of thing? And you're going to know very quickly, I think. I mean, I just watched the trailer for it, and I can
yeah,
tell from the trailer whether or not that's going to be something I'm going to be interested in watching. And I think
yeah,
that's a good litmus test for
yeah,
anybody.
yeah. Because there's a lot of violence just seems to come easy
Hmm.
to like everyone involved kind of thing.
Hmm.
And I watch it and it's like watching a car crash. I just watching it and like, oh, what are they going to do to get away with it? I think that's what makes it interesting is like, especially from a writer standpoint, is it's like, okay, well, you're going to do this, and like, how are you planning to get away with that? Kind of
Hmm.
thing. But it's written pretty well where, it actually ends up all being logical, because so often oh, this is really cool. They go in for like the murder, like, or horror, like the uh the death scene, really elaborate, and you're like, well, that would never happen.
Hmm.
But in this case, uh it's I don't know, it's a sad commentary on society, but I guess all of it could easily happen, you know, right place, wrong time, or I guess it'd be wrong place too. Wrong place,
Hmm.
wrong time. But
Hmm.
no, they do a good job. And it's always moving. The only thing I would say negative about it, which really isn't a negative, I guess, is that it seems like every end of the show is like a semi cliffhanger. So it's like,
Yeah.
oh, I got to get ready to go to bed, and it's like da 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 da, and then all of a sudden, like 5 gang members jump out and like surround Easy, and then it goes to the Mine
Yeah.
MC logo. I'm like, seriously,
Yeah.
I can't
Yeah.
go to bed now. But
I gotta find out what happens to Easy.
I know. But then you do, and it's some other BS that's you want to watch. But still, it's a good show if you like that type of thing. But it's not everyone's cup of tea. That's for sure.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I definitely got that vibe from the trailer for
Yeah.
sure. That you're either gonna it's probably gonna be you're gonna be totally into this or you're not gonna care.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Well, that's exactly it. It's
yeah.
it's kind of like a window into like, what it'd be like to be in a gang, and the whole cartel. It's kind
Hmm.
of bleak and black. I guess
Hmm.
the money's good, but it's it's
Yeah,
not for everybody.
yeah. Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's interesting. It's kind of off what I generally watch, but every so often I just feel like watching something like that. So,
Hmm. Yeah, well, we talked on the show previously about mood reads. I think there's such a thing as mood watches too,
yeah,
right? Where it's, not necessarily your wheelhouse, but you're into it for a period of time for whatever reason that
yeah,
happens, right?
yeah. Well, what's interesting too in this is they actually bring members from the Sons of Anarchy into the show.
Mm-hmm.
It's very limited, but every so often they'll call on them for
Mm-hmm.
help to do something. And none of the original cast, of course. I think this might be actually a different club because there's one like uh, from Southern California, there's Northern California membership
Mm-hmm.
of this one, so I think it might be different.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of his name now. Is it Robert Patrick? The guy who played the melting metal Terminator.
Yeah, Robert Patrick,
It is Robert
T
Patrick.
the T-1000. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. He's I guess he's a leader. They didn't really come out and say it, but he always seems to do the talking for them. But he's with the Sons of Anarchy.
Yeah,
So that was
okay.
kind of neat when they rolled up and I was like, oh, Sons of Anarchy.
Nice
So
bike.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So yeah. But if you're into that type of thing, then check it out. Did you ever watch Sons of Anarchy? I think we talked about this, but I can't remember.
No, no, not really.
Okay.
I
Not
might
your
have
cup
seen
of
an
tea.
episode at one point, but that was never really my jam.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, it was pretty good.
yeah. I'm not against it. It's just I have such a long list of things on my to watch list that it would take a while for me to work my way down to that, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Anything like that's always been appealing to me for some reason. I mean, I even
Hmm.
liked, actually, I'd probably get this name wrong. Uh, Mobsters. It had all these young actors playing the young gangsters, like the young Lansky, young Capone,
Hmm.
uh, young Bugsy Siegel, all those guys. And it
Hmm.
had Christian Slater in it. A lot of people were kind of laughed about it, but I even liked that. I thought it was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, always been fascinated with that. Not quite true crime. True crime's like about one crime, but that kind of stuff's always been fascinating. Ever since seeing The Godfather, just been that kind of world.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, right? Like people who are into that sort of thing, they just can't seem to get enough of it. So I
Yeah,
definitely see the appeal. Yeah.
yeah. Hmm. So that's my pick. Mayans MC. If you're into driving bikes, shooting people without any qualm, sneaking over borders and sneaking in drugs, then check it out.
All right. That seems like a great checklist.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you
I
go.
think for sure now if you fill out that checklist and it's like tick, 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 you know where to tune in.
But you should probably watch Sons of Anarchy first, but you don't have to.
Yeah. Fair enough. Okay. So that is going to bring us to the end of this escapade. Uh, Remember to keep an eye on your feed this month for the next episode of Off the Clock, and we will see you next time.
See you later. I'm gonna go get on my motorcycle.
Alligator.
That's it. Vroom, vroom.
Congratulations, you just survived the post-mortem report. For more information about the show, the hosts, or the things they talked about, visit our official website at postmortemreport.com. And always remember, good posts never die.